Today we are here with Danell Ledin. I pronounced it properly, right?
Yes, you did.
I'm worried about butchering people's names always. Like we work together every day, but anyway, so got it right. And we've been talking about crazy clients, which there are some crazy clients in the world.
Yes.
This is the Redefine Real Estate podcast. For those of you who don't know, you probably know because you made it to the channel, so you know that you're on the Redefine Real Estate podcast or our YouTube channel. This also goes out to YouTube. And I'm very excited for this conversation. Although we've been talking about crazy people for the last 30 minutes, we can switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about some normal people, specifically you, hopefully, to start with.
I consider myself pretty normal.
Normal is like relative to yes, but we're not gonna go down that path. So Danell, tell us just a quick rundown of who you are, your real estate career, so people know just a quick few seconds around that.
Okay, so I actually have a degree in teaching, and I decided to stay home and raise my two little girls. And when I decided that it was time to go back to work when they were both in school, I didn't want to go back to be a teacher. I was like, just wasn't in me. And I had some retail sales experience in the past, and I really enjoyed it. I love people. So I decided to tell my husband, I said, I'm not going to go do teaching. And he's like, what? I said, I want to be a real estate agent. He was like, I said, just let me try it. I said, I went to 4 years of school to be a teacher. This is going to take 1 week to get the license. Let me just try it. He's like, okay, do what you got to do. So I went and did it. And, I started my first year and I was like a rookie of the year and killing it. And I was like, I love this. And he was like, wow. He's like, you really do, like, this is your thing. And I was like, this is my thing. So that is kind of how I got into it. It was a very fast kind of thing. So I still do have that teaching degree I've never used, but I've been married to my high school sweetheart it'll be 28 years in May. I have two girls. They're not little anymore, 16 and 13. Keep me very busy. I'm a resident of Canton for 27 years.
Canton, Michigan.
Canton, Michigan. Yeah, I did not grow up here or there, but
wait, where'd you grow up?
I actually grew up in Huron, so it's a little bit south of Metro Airport.
Yep.
So a little bit more rural. But I've always had a passion for interior design. Actually, at one point, I did start taking some classes, but found out very fast that in Michigan, there's not a huge industry for interior design. So I thought, oh no, I'm going to ended up back into the retail realm. So I kind of stepped back from that. And that's when I went into teaching. Because originally I was going to be a lawyer. I have lots of different things.
Wow. That's how life happens.
Yeah,
right? You got to figure it out.
Absolutely. And, that's this conversation I've been having with my 16-year-old. She's like, at school, they're pressuring her to try to decide what she wants to do for her, like her career for the rest of her life. And I said, honey, you're probably not going to do what you think you're going to do. I said, look at me. I'm on like my 5th or 6th.
Right.
But I think I'm going to stay here.
So the teaching thing, I love this. So I say this all the time. I believe this. I'm excited to finally have a legit certified teacher in our organization. So Danell works for Redefine Real Estate. She's part of our brokerage. A lot of the people that we do interview on this channel aren't always part of the brokerage. So that's unique. And on this podcast, just to give you guys a rundown, we're going to talk a little bit about your story. We want to talk about some of the interior designing, some about staging, which is a fun one I want to discuss. But one of the big things that I wanted to discuss on this episode was about teaching, because I believe, so you said I'm not using my teaching degree, sort of. So I believe you're totally using your teaching degree. And I think that teachers make fantastic real estate agents, because I think that's really our job. I think our job is to truly coach and educate and teach people about what we know about the business, what we know about real estate, and coach them through the process. Then they make the decision. I think it's kind of like the beauty behind it, right? So when you're coaching and educating, you're like, here's the pros and cons, here's this decision, that decision, you decide what you like, here's the data, right? And then they kind of make it from there. So what has teaching, the teaching background giving you in real estate? What, like any key takeaways or thought process, or what comes to mind when I say that?
So I think being, taught, I guess, in a university setting of how to relay information to people comes in handy when you're doing real estate. Like the other day, just as a super quick example that came to mind, my 16 and 13-year-old were sitting there when I was writing an offer, and I said something about an appraisal guarantee. And they're like, well, what is that? Because they always ask me like what these things are. And I explained it to them, and they got it. And I was like, I love this. So just being able to take our information that we know as realtors and kind of convey it to someone that doesn't do that on a daily basis, right? Like, so they need to know kind of in layman terms that like what we're saying and what we mean. So I think that has helped. I would say organization, but I'm not going to lie. I'm probably not the most organized. But teachers always have a plan, right? Like you do not walk into a classroom without a plan. Like it's laid out from 9 until 9:15. You're doing this. It's, those lesson plans, you live by them. So I think that also too, kind of learning the steps of what you have to do as a realtor, it kind of put in a lesson plan. So that kind of ties into it a little bit too.
That makes sense. I think one of your skill sets is definitely drawing people into you. You're so personable, like from our first conversations before you even joined the brokerage to now, and just being able to communicate clearly and being on that wavelength is a hard thing. But you also, I feel like you're one of the people that I know that can probably bring all types of people in. And so when it comes to the education thing, what I try to talk about to the group at times is that we should be able to explain complex issues to like a third grader, right? It's like if we can explain like very complex mortgage issues or real estate items to a third grader, then we can probably get our clients to understand it. And then they're going to make the most well-versed decisions, right?
Correct.
It's easy to explain complex things to very, very smart, educated people or people that know the industry. It's harder to do it when it's somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're new to it, or maybe it makes them a little bit nervous, or there's a lot of emotions tied to it. And so being able to break that down super awesome. I didn't think about like the daily plan, right? Because like a teacher, it'd probably be chaos. I'm assuming if you go into a classroom and you don't have a plan, it's just like complete chaos. Like the students are probably going to run you at that point. You're like, no, this is what's happening at this time. This is what's happening at that time. And I'm going to move things forward. Before, obviously, you didn't end up pulling the trigger on it, but did you have a goal of like the grade you wanted to teach or age group or?
Yeah, I really enjoyed third grade to about eighth grade. Okay. I always said they were my little bobbleheads because junior high, people like kind of shy away from junior hires. I think that they're funny. Yeah. They really don't know anything what's going on. The hormones are kicking in and they're like little bobbleheads. And I did some like classroom work with them and I just really enjoyed them because they're old enough for you to tell them a task and like they know what you're telling them to do.
Yeah.
But they're not to the point yet where they're not, I don't want to say scared, but they still want to follow directions somewhat.
Yep.
High schoolers, you kind of lose them.
Right.
Either they're a good student or they're just off on a different path.
Being Mr. Cool in the corner.
Yeah. Babies are adorable. Like I'm going to say babies, like kindergarten to third.
Yeah.
Adorable. But I don't want the responsibility of teaching them how to read for the rest of life. And they're always crying and they have bathroom problems. There's a lot of issues there. So I felt like I kind of fit in. I did my student teaching at a school in Canton. And it was third grade. And I loved them. They were great. It was a great experience. And I thought, this is probably the minimal grade that I would go into. So yeah.
The starting point.
Yeah.
Did you see that with your daughters of like the same type of evolution of like?
Oh yeah. They definitely, all of a sudden it's like, it's interesting because kids just all of a sudden get it. And you're like, oh, yay.
You're like an adult now.
Yeah. Like my 16-year-old is like talking to another, like an adult somewhat sometimes, but, yeah, it's just, it's fun. Kids are fun and there's a stage for everything. So like you see them go through these stages, but yeah, that junior high age like is hard, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah, I can think about I don't have kids that age yet, but just thinking about my personal life and like how it kind of evolved. That makes sense. Like things start to click a little bit like late elementary school, you get to middle school, it's kind of a weird time, but I think those are also very like influential times, There's just the brain development and social development and all these things that are happening. So those are critical years. I'm so grateful and appreciative of all teachers, even people that are thinking about getting into teaching. And again, I do believe that that's what we do. Like I believe I'm an educator of what I know in the real estate space, and I'm a dot connector. I can help put you in front of the resources that you need. I'm very, very well versed in this stuff at this point. And before I was well versed in real estate, I think I could do a good job of finding the answer. So I never lied to anyone. I never said like I'm the most experienced guy around. I said, hey, listen, this is where I'm at in my career, but I know a couple things. I know a good amount about real estate and things that I don't know. I know I'm going to find you the correct answer and I'll outwork the next guy to do it every single time without a doubt. And so that eventually grows and snowballs and you learn more and more throughout your career. So I'm glad you ended up in real estate because I think real estate agents and brokers, we need good people. We need good educators. We need people that have that type of mindset, because if you lead with education, you're going to have success, right? If you lead with, hey, I'm trying to get this information that I think is important for this person into their heads so they can make an educated decision, that's an awesome place to be. If you lead with, hey, I just want to get a quick sale and open a lockbox and write a contract so I can get a quick check, that's a bad place to be, right? And so I think that correlation is critical. Okay, so you got into real estate. You found some success. You had a couple different experiences in real estate before you get into the staging and the design and stuff like that. But you were part of a team. They needed an individual. Like, take me through like your career as far as the real estate world and pros and cons, maybe like being on a team, not on a team, brokerages, what that looked like. Again, we can leave names out, but you can,
So I did start off right out the gate on a team. It was a smaller team that grew to a little bit larger, but from the very beginning, I think teams are really helpful when you do start in real estate, because I feel like there's people around you that support you, that guide you. I don't think I'd be the agent today if I didn't start off in a team, like who I am now, I guess I should say, because I feel like if I were an agent and went into one of the brokerages that are just you're independent, you would feel like so lost in the sea of not knowing what to do. And like, all agents are busy, so they don't necessarily have time to stop. And most people are very friendly and they will help you, but like their business is going, right? So they don't really have time to stop and like hold your hand because you don't know how to fill out the PA or, all that good stuff. So I feel like the team was really helpful. I feel like that situation, I was, I had done that for about 5 years, and I was like, oh, I want to do the independent thing because now I know all of this. Like, I got this, right? And I did. And I went and I did it for 3 years, and I kind of got lost. I feel like what happened was my focus kind of changed. There was nobody holding me accountable. There wasn't that team, like, let's go, kind of like everybody, the training. There were trainings, but it wasn't, it was definitely a different field. And I think that if you are a person that likes people and to be around people, who I am, I love to talk to people. I like to be around. I like to throw ideas, talk about things like that. I kind of started losing myself in real estate, and I didn't feel like I started just not being motivated. I started not going to the office. And when you start doing that, then you start not doing business because you're kind of at home, and, and I fell right into the whole doing the mom thing. And then pretty soon that was taking more time. And, even though I was still trying to do the full-time real estate thing, it was just hard to balance that because I didn't have that support. Right. So fast forward. I knew at the beginning of, at the end of last year, that I needed to change. And all along, I know we're not going to talk about staging just yet, but all along in this journey, I had started staging a long time ago, like when I started in real estate. And so I still had that little bit of that business left.
Secondary business.
Secondary business, yeah. And I was focusing on that a little bit more, I think because I was drawing away from the real estate. And I just had to make a decision, like, do I stay doing what I'm doing and just continue out the staging and just kind of let the real estate fall aside? Or do I search out like another team? And that's how I'm here.
So since we're on the topic, and the goal of these podcasts aren't necessarily about Redefine Real Estate, but we are on the topic. So the goal for us is to be sort of a hybrid of a true, what you would imagine of a successful team, right? There's some top producing teams locally. They work in very much a team aspect, usually under a brokerage. I think teams have a bad rap because a lot of teams aren't very good, or you don't really get a lot of collaboration. But our goal is to build your individual business simultaneously. So we have somewhat of a team structure underneath the brokerage, right? But it's more like levels of agents rather than teams, so that you can. So how do you see that hybrid? Do you like that hybrid model? I'm assuming, because you're still here, we haven't scared you away yet. But is there benefits out of that? Do you feel like you have that in-office culture, that collaboration, some accountability, but also you can build your own business your way? That's the goal.
Yeah, I do think that fits who I am now as an agent, because had I started that right out the gate, maybe not, because I wouldn't have had that business of my own sphere that I worked with, and as you call it, top 50. But I do think that it fits who I am now, because I still do want that team aspect, but I also kind of have the experience of being the independent agent. So yes, it's kind of a hybrid. It works for me. And I think that's going to be where I can be most successful, kind of ride the line of both.
Yeah. So we have different levels of agents. And so what the idea is that agents have different places in their journey. And so a level 1 agent is not where Danell's at, but a level 1 agent has a little bit more hands-on, more of that like direct team stuff. And as we evolve, we try to give support and resources. One thing you mentioned, which I thought was interesting too, is having support. So being able to juggle Like you got teenage girls at home, you got a staging business, which we're going to get into next. You have the real estate business, being able to juggle all that. How helpful has it been so far to have a lot of that paperwork and back end admin stuff taken off your plate since we're talking about it? Okay, cool.
So I actually have a closing today, and up to that closing, you know, there's certain things that we would normally do, call for the water reads, all this kind of stuff. And yesterday I had a conversation with one of our admin, and I was like, you did all of that? Like, I'm not used to that all being done for me. So it was really nice to be able to do that whole transaction without getting like too overwhelmed. Like it was so nice. And, you know, I had somebody else like there with me kind of double checking, even though I'm used to doing it. Like I remembered I got to do the water. And when I asked him, he's like, oh no, I got that done. So it was great.
Good to hear. So shout out to Noah and the Stephanie admin team. But yeah, that's really our goal, is to create that hybrid approach. Okay. So back to your journey. So along the way, let's talk about staging. So the thing that's interesting about Danell and I's relationship is like, I'm huge in marketing, I'm huge in real estate, and the staging world hasn't been huge for me so far. Different approach for you. You've had some success. So tell us about how you got into staging, what happened, what does that look like now? What are the goals, moving forward?
So it was kind of by default. As I kind of mentioned, I had taken some interior design classes, right? So it's always been an interest of mine. I've always been like, my husband teases that we've lost 300 square feet of our house because I paint it so much. That's not even true, but I do like to change things. And so I've always like helped clients, but starting off with like family members, friends. Oh, come over here, Danell. Can you pick out this? Yeah. So it's always kind of been a passion of mine, and I've been decent at it, right? So when I got into real estate, it was always something that like kind of was just natural to me. I would walk in a house and I'd be like, oh my gosh, have you ever thought of like taking down this wall or moving this, or that'd be pretty there, or, just kind of like talking to my clients, kind of giving them the vision. Not everybody has the vision. Like some of us are gifted with like looking at a room and seeing it all done, and others, no way. So it was kind of fun, right? And my broker at the time, she kind of knew that I liked that. And we had a house that was staged by another company they had hired, and they didn't do the best of job. And she's like, I can't let the client see this. Can you come over here and tell me, like, what do you think? And so I went over there and I was like, oh. Yikes. She said, they're coming back on Monday. Can you fix this? And I said, okay. I said, I have 2 days, right? And she's like, yeah. So I rented at a U-Haul. I remember that day very clearly because my girls were young and they had to go with me. I said, get in the U-Haul. We have to go to the store. And they're like, where are we going, Mom? I'm like, we're going to buy furniture. And they were like, okay. So I literally did this whole thing in 2 days, took it back, redid the house, right? And made it look like it should have. And everyone was happy. The staging company was not, because they called and said, what did you do with our staging stuff? And we're like, we didn't do anything. It's just moved over. And then they're like, why did you do this? And we said, well, because we didn't feel like it was like what the client was looking for. And they're like, most importantly, how did you do this and who did it? So I kind of was like, oh, maybe I have something. Fast forward, I think my broker looked at me and he's like, why aren't we doing this? Why are we hiring another company? She's like, do you want to do this? And I was like, I want to do this. So we kind of got into it. It was a subsidiary little business part of that brokerage. And so I kind of took it from ground up. I bought all the furniture, did all of it. I would go quote the jobs. It just kind of naturally came to me. So I did that with her until it was, until I left that brokerage. And then on my own, I still do it, but it was on a much smaller scale. So I had a little storage unit, and it was more of like, I would go into a client's house and say, hey, let's move this couch here. Let's do this, open this up. I have some knickknacks. Well, so it was kind of like on a smaller scale. Last year I did get somebody to join me. We kind of amped it up a little bit. So now we got enough to start doing a couple houses again. So, it's just something that I feel like I enjoy so much, and I love the transformation. So like, I love taking a blank room and making it beautiful.
And the thing that I like about Danell's approach to this, guys, is that she looks at it kind of case by case, right? So it's not like a lot of companies, they want to move everything out, put in the furniture that they already have. It is what it is. They'll throw it up and it's not really done properly, rather than saying like, okay, what do we have to work with? How do we customize this room and slowly get it? So it's more of that like hands-on feel, rather than like these companies, which sounds like how you started. The company just came in, threw stuff in there, like it's staged because there's somewhat of a modern couch and something on the counter, right? That's not like stage. There's a different way to do it, and it is an art, right? Like I think it's completely an art, and not everyone's good at art. Like they can make art, but it doesn't mean it's good art. So cool. So the company has been doing pretty well. You're still getting jobs, and you'll continue to do so. How does that correlate with your real estate business? So one of the reasons when we first connected, which I'm excited about, is being able to reach out to different clients. A lot of times this is usually more high-end clients, but not always, and being able to work in this collaborative space. So, we're still kind of getting feelers out there together, working together as a brokerage and stuff like that. But as we move into the future, I'm excited for these jobs because I think that there's more and more of them that will be available to be able to collaborate with the homeowner and do a proper job. So can you give a story of like a listing or something where you had a success stories where it's kind of like the both sides of the coin?
One comes to mind. There was a house that I was actually working with a son, and I sold his condo. And he said my father's had his house up for a while out in a different city, and he's not selling it. And it was on the market for about 6 months. And he's like, I really want you to talk to my dad. I really think you need to go over there and just look at the house. So I did, and he decided to work with me. And I told him, I said, listen, I think you have a great house, great location. And as a realtor, like, I know we can sell this, but there are some things that I think that client or potential buyers are looking for, right? I said, you have to trust me. I said, I need about 20 grand and just let's do these things. And then I would stage it. So we did. And we did things like quartz in the kitchen. We changed light fixtures. It was just a dated house. It was in great shape, great bones, great location, like I said, but it was dated, right? So people walk in and go, oh my gosh, I got to do all this stuff. So we just freshened it up, did some painting and everything. And then I took his furniture that he had, kind of took out his personal things, brought in the staging items, but used his main items. We staged it. I went on market, and I remember that day because I did the open house by myself. We had probably about 30 people through that house. And I had people that came through that house that had seen it prior, and they're like, this house is completely different. And I was like, oh. So, and we had about 10 offers on that house. We went 50,000 over.
Fantastic.
Cash offer. And it was like, like staging does work. Like that exact same house in the exact same location, a little polishing up and a little bit sprucing up and bringing it to like a little bit more of an updated look. Sold it. There's a statistic that says that 73% of the houses that are staged will they sell faster than any other house on the market because people envision themselves there, right? They are like, oh, it's just like a model home. When you go into a model home that a builder, it's not blank, right? They stage it. They stage it beautifully because they want you to be like, oh, I live here. You're creating a lifestyle.
Yes. One of the builders I work with, I think he spent like over $200,000 staging his model house. And this is not like a crazy price point by any means. I mean, it's a good price point for Southeast Michigan, but this is not like California where it's a $5 million house or anything like that. So like there's a lot of benefit to that, I think. But I think I like your approach too, because it's not always just staging. Sometimes staging means like, okay, we're gonna do countertops, we're gonna paint, we're gonna like there's any staging could be for some houses. For me, I think staging sometimes is actually just clearing it out. Like if I have like a small ranch, it's very choppy, and like sometimes like I don't even want any furniture in there because it feels bigger. Sometimes we want to put furniture in there. And so it's a collaborative approach, which I think is a direct overlap, whether it's a staging company through a real estate company or both in your case, to be able to work through it. So having that skill set is huge. And all of you sellers back home, if you're watching this and you happen to check out this video, Danell will help you take your home that's dated. Let's say you built in the 80s or 90s or 2000s, and it just really doesn't have that modern feel. We can give it a modern feel. At an absorbable price that will more than pay for itself, right? Like if that $20,000, it sounds like just an appraisal coverage or above list price, I should say, paid for itself, but it probably paid for itself 5 times over that just because of where it came from in the first place. So in real estate, a lot of times you have to spend money to make money, and that's part of the gig. Okay, so you have the staging stuff going. Interior designing, prep work for listings. I think that's an awesome go-to-market, a huge benefit that you would get through you as an agent, which is fantastic. So we're excited that you're here to do that for our clients and for your clients. Okay, so like moving forward, like what are your goals? What are your projections? Like what are you seeing with your business? What are you looking forward to as we move into the future?
Real estate or staging?
Either one. Like what are you excited about?
So I really think that. With my, I guess, skill set of the staging, I think I can definitely be of I don't want to say good use, but I think I can be a definite advocate to helping the sellers like kind of know. I think as being an agent, not just a stager, I also know what buyers are looking for, right? So like I know when I take my buyers through, like what are they paying attention to? So that also helps me as a stager. I just had last week I staged a home, and my partner that works with me, she's never done real estate. She's only done the interior design, and she placed something somewhere. And I said, that's not going to work. And she's like, well, why? And I said, because we're not living here. I said, and when the picture's taken, that's going to look off-centered. Everything needs to be symmetrical. I said, as a real estate agent, when I get those pictures, like I want to see that. And she was like, okay. She wasn't really in agreement with me, but I was like, I removed it anyways. I was like, no, because we're selling the house. We weren't just decorating, right? So I think that I would like to work more with sellers that need that maybe a little bit of help. I don't ever, some people I say design on a dime. I can find you. I had a very high-end client that was quoted hundreds of thousands of dollars to redo their house. I came in and I think that we probably spent less than $50,000 and they got the look they wanted because I was able to say, you don't need to spend $20,000 on that dining room table they quoted you. We can find it for less. So I feel like, hey, listen, if you're not, if it's just pretty, there's some good stuff. But I think that like just working with sellers and like trying to get them to understand you don't have to do a complete redo. It's just like a home edit, maybe, is what it's called. Like, and I think like even just decluttering, removing things, moving furniture. A lot of times people put furniture in a certain way because they live there. And so like, oh, this is the good TV angle. But when you walk in a house, you don't want that couch right in your face, right? Like you need to make the room look bigger. So I just think that it's a good tool in my tool belt that I can definitely assist sellers and help us get a higher dollar and more people through the house. Because those pictures, when you get those beautiful pictures that we take here at Redefine, if it's staged properly, they look even better.
Sure. So I think that there's a lot of clients, there's going to be more and more of a need for this because we're seeing the baby boomer population selling, right? So there's just, we have hundreds currently that we've talked to that are sort of ready to move when the time comes or thinking about in the foreseeable future. Most of them have a very nice home. They want to downsize. And a lot of those homeowners, not all of them, some of them have done some nice updates, recent updates, prepped. Some people have that skill that you're talking about, but a lot of them don't, right? And so their house is very much stuck in the 2000s or 90s, and they've been in the house for a long time. And again, it's a beautiful house. They've enjoyed it and not taking away from any of their furniture or their stuff, but it really, that investment, that white glove experience from, hey, let's have a conversation 6 months, a year, 2 years in advance sometimes, which sounds crazy to say, okay, over the next 2 years, because you want to, move by the time you're 75. Let's just come up with a number, right? And using that white glove experience to say, okay, we're going to paint this wall. We're going to move some furniture around. We're going to update a couple things. We're going to slowly get there. And all of a sudden that investment, although sounding big at tens of thousands of dollars or thousands of dollars, might make you $100,000, $150,000 in the back end. I think that's huge. My cousin gave me a story. One of his good friends is an agent in Bethesda, Maryland, and he said he works with a lot of really high-end clients, and sometimes they put hundreds of thousands of dollars into these houses because they're going to sell for $500,000 more once you do some of that stuff. So those are pretty wild numbers, I understand, for a lot of people, but sometimes it's even $4,000 or $6,000 goes into a house, and all of a sudden you make $20,000 or $30,000 in the back end. That's what you're paying for when you're hiring a good listing agent. You're paying for someone that's going to take you from start to finish, not just sell your house when you're ready or you found a house you want to move real quick. A good listing agent, a good brokerage should be working with you for months or years to prep that house, especially for a lot of you downsizers out there. So a lot of downsizers are apprehensive. They don't have to move. They want to move it eventually, but they're kind of in this like limbo period. When I find the right house, or we want to downsize to a ranch, and they never really look at it as a full service thing. But these projects can take months or years, but if you're doing it right, that can really make your move a lot better. Homes have appreciated. A lot of people are downsizing. They're paying just as much for their downsized house as they are for their big colonial they've been in for 20 years, right? And so making that extra $20, $30, $40, $100,000 on the sale really helps them on the purchase along the way. So that's what Danell does. That's what we do. We're going to stage it. We're going to prep it. We're going to take you through all that. Anything that you want to leave the people with before we end our conversation today? Like I hit people with like favorite word, quote that comes to mind. I like putting people on the spot. You can tell I put her on the spot. She's like, Matt, you didn't prep me for this.
Oh,
You can just say peace, love, and happiness, whatever you need. What comes to mind? Like leave the people with something.
Okay. So I believe that we should all continuously learn throughout life. Like we're never done learning. And as a teacher at heart, I think that we can always learn something. And I always like to learn something new every day, or from clients. Like clients will teach you something. Like you just got to look for it, or maybe they'll openly tell you. But I do believe that we evolve every year, every day, and just look around and see what you can take from it and learn something, because we all need to grow, even though we're shrinking.
On that note, thank you so much for checking out this episode of the Redefine Real Estate podcast and YouTube. If you want to find our brokerage, it's Redefine Real Estate or redefine.real estate, certain places. Thanks, Danell, for the conversation. Enjoyed it, and I'm excited to continue to crush with you.
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
thank
thanks.
you.